Please welcome up the CEO of Pelago, Jeff Holden.
Thanks, Brady. Can you hear me? Good. And here's my clicker. Hi, I'm Jeff Holden, CEO of Pelago and also founder. And as Brady mentioned, long history at Amazon.com, almost 9 years there. And at Pelago, we make this product, Whirl. And what Whirl is storytelling for your daily life. Or the way I like to think about it is it allows you to capture your life story one moment at a time. And we're using it's a location-based product. And what we're actually going to be talking about today is Footstreams. And Footstreams are, I think it's probably a term most of you haven't heard unless you read the description of this talk. The idea with Footstreams is that it's the physical world analog of a clickstream for the web. And I actually think it's going to be one of the most important pieces of the value creation fabric for location-based services, if that's a phrase anyone understands besides me. I think it's going to be very, very important kind of piece of the ecosystem. So since it is an analog of a clickstream, I thought I'd spend a couple minutes talking about how value is created with clickstreams with a few examples, and then I can show kind of the analog in the Footstream domain. So Amazon.com, obviously near and dear to my heart. Many of you have seen this, probably everyone in the room many times, and probably have given up a good chunk of your wallet share to this. But Amazon.com, on any random detail page, and actually there are features all over Amazon this way that leverage clickstream analysis, have features like frequently bought together, and customers who bought this item also bought. And they're literally analyzing which products are bought together, which items lead to downstream purchase based on this item, and surfacing that up for you in features, making it very, very easy for you to stumble down a serendipitous discovery pathway. So that's obviously creating value, and I think most people would be shocked to know the percentage of Amazon.com's revenue that comes from this set of personalization features. I think another great example of clickstream analysis creating value is Google. So Google is heavy consumer and user of data and believes deeply in data analysis. They even analyze their own staff. I was just reading in the Wall Street Journal yesterday to figure out who's likely to leave the company. That's a new approach. But what they're doing here is they're just taking a very, very simple data loop. Which results are clicked through based on the search term that's entered, and they're using that for the relevancy ranking algorithm. So you can see I searched for longitude here, and it looks like what people want to do is just learn more about longitude. They end up going to Wikipedia, and similarly for latitude. Oh, actually, I guess with latitude, that's not quite the case. It looks like, well, I guess it's possible that more people actually are interested in getting Google Latitude than they are learning about what latitude actually is. Who am I to question sophisticated Google algorithms? But here's another sort of less kind of well-known company creating value with clickstreams. This is Audience Science, and actually Google's recently come out of the closet on this topic as well, which is behavioral targeting. And so what these guys do, and actually what they should do, is have this guy as their mascot. They basically set cookies that span site visits, so they can actually capture your browsing history and create a profile for you about your behavior on the web. And they can do, the classic example is if you're looking at car sites, maybe you're in the market to buy a car, so they can target advertisements for cars to you. So last example is one that's near and dear to my heart also because I love discovery, and I'll talk about that in more depth in a minute, is StumbleUpon. StumbleUpon analyzes clickstreams of where people go on the web. Instead of using a behavioral targeting kind of approach, they actually have you just bounce around the web through their site, and they capture the sites you go to. And with that, they can actually surface up really interesting websites. For example, I would never have known how far nanotechnology has come along if I hadn't found this site, which shows that you can actually now build Obama's face with vertical carbon nanotubes. Who'd have known? And I never would have known about the anonymous hugging wall. The anonymous hugging, just look at, does that freak you out to look at that thing? This is a sad state of affairs the world has come to, that we need an anonymous hugging wall. But, wow. So that's clickstreams and what they can do for you. So with Footstreams, you might think that what I'm getting at is, just capturing people's location as they move around, location, latitude, longitude. That's not what I'm talking about, actually, because it turns out that while latitude and longitude, location is interesting information, the real context value comes from place. And place is something that's a named thing. We're at the San Jose, the San Jose Fairmont Hotel right now. I had to think about that for a second, remember what hotel I'm in. The fact that I'm at a hotel says certain things about what I'm doing. I'm actually engaging with this hotel. I might be staying here. I might be at a conference. But knowing my latitude and longitude right now would give you very little information. And from the analogy to the Clickstream kind of perspective, it would be like having just an IP address and an XY coordinate of where you've clicked on the screen, rather than having the fact that you went to Amazon.com or you went to the Obama vertical nanotube site. And so you get much, much more context by knowing the place. And it turns out that technically this is a relatively challenging problem. You can always, of course, ask the user to capture the place that they're at. Just say, hey, type in the place you're at. That's an incredibly high friction thing to do. And so what you want to do for the UI is be able to automatically compute the place that the person's at. There's no service that does this for you. You can call Apple's core location service, but you're not going to get back a place. You're going to get back a latitude and longitude and an accuracy. And so the question is, how do you convert that into place so that you can start doing this foot streaming? And I that's one of the things that we're working very hard on. Our company actually created a patent around this technology, a technology to solve this problem, back in 2006, because we consider it to be such an important piece of, as I mentioned, the kind of the fabric of the evolving LBS ecosystem. So just to help you visualize what a foot stream might look like, this is something you've all seen before, a map. But this is what a map looks like on foot streaming, or I guess foot streaming on a map. And this is actually a picture taken from Footstream data in World 1.0, the initial product that my company built. And what we're doing is we're actually adding some additional semantics here. We've learned what people in this is actually from my data, what people in my social network think of these various places. If you hovered your mouse over any of these places, it would actually show show in a popover the name of the place and what my friends think of that place, and so. So on and so forth. And so this is a very interesting way to serendipitously discover what's around you. Of course, if you combine this with factual data, like the type of place that it is it open now, et cetera, you can create a very, very compelling discovery experience with that. And so a question you might ask is, why will this happen? Why are we going to actually get people foot streaming? And a part of that answer, and by the way I always think about these kinds of questions is, especially when LBS and applications around LBS are very nascent, is not, kind of like, prove it to me based on existence proofs out there, since there are none. It's more about what the trends are. And I think one really important trend is pervasive location awareness. I think we all agree that that's happening. That, every device, that you carry around with you will ultimately be location enabled, probably be networked, and so you'll be able to actually, capture location and transmit it. The other really interesting and important trend is micro-sharing. And I think the combination of these two things is extremely potent and actually will lead to foot streaming, people actually capturing everywhere they go. And Twitter and Facebook have really made this a reality happily. And I remember predicting back in 2006 that this might actually happen, and people thought I was insane then too. So here's just to help you visualize some footstream data, in sort of more of a statistical form. This is actually, this graph I think is actually just kind of interesting validation that footstream data that's already in our system actually lines up with what people actually do, or what you intuit people do. It shows, for example, that the red line there, coffee shops, it shows people are checking in or arriving at coffee shops exactly when you expect them to. They're sort of before work and at that sort of mid-afternoon need for a caffeine injection. And the blue line is restaurants. People are going there in midday, and they're also going there in the evening for dinner. And then the bars, you can see the bars kind of ramp up during the evening. I don't know who these people are who go to the bars at 4 in the afternoon. I wish I were one of them. But it ramps up, and it's sort of in the post-dinner hour. You see the bars kind of peak out. Some other sort of fun statistics from our data: 78% of our places that have a similarity have a greater than or equal to 3 or more than 3 similarities, which means that we can say people who go to this place also go to this place. We can introduce to them things that they can, discoveries that they don't have to search for. I think that's pretty exciting. And over 60% of our users who have checked in twice have recommendations waiting for them, which means that a huge percentage of our users only have to commit, or a user only has to commit really kind of 2 actions for them to actually start getting a lot of value from this foot streaming environment. And it's still very early days. Some rather depressing and frightening statistics from my own footstream. There's 642 days of data in my footstream now, and one of the conclusions you can draw quickly is that I like beer. So 54% of the restaurants I go to serve beer, but 93% of my dining experiences are at places that have beer. I didn't even know I was doing this, but apparently I'm steering my wife to always go to places that have beer, just in case a beer opportunity breaks out. and a term that I coined, mean time between Starbucks. I know you all know what I mean. It's 29 hours for me over my entire lifetime of my data. But it's actually been, I guess, a particularly stressful week. I got it all the way down to 12 hours. Is that nasty? That's really gross. I was at Starbucks every 12 hours for an entire week. And I go between 2 and 4 times a day on average, also very frightening data. So this might be the kind of data you don't share, but it's very interesting nonetheless. This is actually another view on the data, which is if you walk through my Footstream, which is I just literally loaded it into a spreadsheet and started looking at it, and I kind of picked out other different cities. I can go back and relive my trips, and actually any friend of mine could do that. So Washington D.C., I was there. I took my dad there for his 70th birthday, and I went back and looked at all these places, some of which actually were recommended by Whirl, which it's just and I'm like, oh wow, we have pictures of that. You can totally go back and sort of walk in those footsteps again, which is really interesting. And also, of course, if we go there again, I know some cool places I enjoyed, and it's right there and available for me on my handset. So these are all various trips I did, and I thought that was a really interesting application of Footstreams. One I'd like to get into a little bit more is local discovery. So, Danny Sullivan, I was actually going to say that, local search is fairly well served. And then I saw Danny's presentation. I'm like, oh, maybe not. But local search is, if you think about this continuum, the mission ambiguity continuum, which I'm sure you all think about every day, it has, you can think about it as, one end, you've got the find case, or spear fishing, as I like to call it, like I want that fish. And then the other end of this continuum is serendipity, which means you have no mission, no discovery mission. I'm not looking for something, but you're walking along and bam, something fortuitously jumps up in front of you. I think that, all of the work to date on local stuff has been around local search related stuff. I want to find the closest Starbucks, or that sort of thing. And when people are put in a situation where they want to discover in a more broad way than spearfishing, it's very frustrating. You kind of look at a list of restaurants and you're like, maybe I'll sort by cuisine type, even though I don't really know what kind of cuisine I want, and see if something jumps out at me. But if you don't know the places, nothing really jumps out at you, so you kind of just say, well, what's nearby? And it doesn't really work. So I think that the bogey is really this part of the continuum. The serendipitous discovery, the cool I didn't know about that case. So real-world recommendations. What can we do with Footstream data here? We can do use cases like this. We can say people who went to X also went to Y. That's very, very interesting. We can start surfacing up for you ideas that you didn't ask for. We can also do before and after similarities, which means people went here. Oh, I see my time is up by a lot. I need to accelerate. That's pretty cool technology. Anyway, you can look at the use cases here. One thing to keep in mind is day parts. You can leverage things like people who from this building go to these places for lunch, but they go to these places for dinner. There's a lot of value in that type of data. Also not straightforward technically. Another very hard problem. I learned the hard lesson at Amazon.com about how to make that stuff work well. I'll skip this, but I will mention this idea of making this a platform. So I mentioned this is one of the key ingredients of, I think, where LBS is going to drive value. So the question is, what if we offered a platform for all of this? This is kind of how I think it would look. Very basic. We can visitize location data, and we can make recommendations. And we've actually been doing work with larger partners already on this front. And I'd like to invite you guys, if you're interested, to sign up for our beta. And if there's enough interest in it, we'll actually open up an API that's broad, and I think will actually benefit everyone by getting all the data in one place. And that's it.